Focus, are we good to go? Are we live? Are we live? Okay. We'll convene momentarily. This is live. I'm in with this one, Kelly, so you can put any of those out for Maria.
Yeah. Also in the chamber.
For those who are joining virtually, we're waiting for one more counselor to establish quorum, and then I'll call the meeting to order. City Council will come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Perez.
Present.
Present. Councilor Click Bruce. Absent. Councilor Curran. Absent. Councilor Walsh.
Present.
Present. Councilor Brown. Absent. Councilor Davila. Present. Councilor Hurst.
Present.
Present. Councilor Edwards. Absent. Councilor Allen.
Present.
Present. Councilor Govan. Absent. Councilor Fenton. Absent. Councilor Whitfield.
Present.
Present. Councilor Letterman.
Present. Thank you, Madam Clerk. This is a special meeting that has been called as a public hearing prior to our scheduled 4:30 meeting. As required by statute, the assessors must present relevant data prior to the 4:30 meeting. And so at this time, I will recognize Chairman Greenhall for his presentation.
Hi, good afternoon, councilors. My name is Patrick Greenhall, Chairman of the Board of Assessors. And some of you have seen this presentation. I updated a little bit today, so I'm going to start the presentation now. So I'm just going to share the screen. Can the host allow me to share the screen?
You should be good to go, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, so this is the classification for the city of Springfield for fiscal 23. And the city council's obligation is to set a residential factor for fiscal 23. And the residential factor does set the tax burden that is to be borne in each class of property. The valuations for fiscal 23 are based on a physical status as of June 30th of 2022. With a full and fair cash value as of January 1st of 2022. And we look at the market sales for residential property and the commercial, we use the income approach to value. This is a chart showing the residential value, well, actually all values over the past few years. And what you're going to see here is that the residential market has appreciated much more than the commercial market over these past few years. And you'll see, so for fiscal 21, the residential share of the total full and fair cash value was 74%, and the SIP share was 26%. But in fiscal 23, that jumped for the residential side to 77% and 23% of the total full and fair cash value for the commercial, industrial, and personal property. This is our total tax levy. And we have been moving away from the levy ceiling, which is very good news. Of course, one of the concerns that we have with a recession is sort of what happens with that levy ceiling over the next few years. If it's if it's a flat market, the levy and the levy ceiling are going to get closer together. But if the market contracts at all, a levy ceiling crash certainly might happen sooner. And that has a ramification of using free cash later, which we'll talk about. Here is a chart showing the selling prices for homes in the city of Springfield, and it's looking at calendar 21 sales versus calendar 19 sales. The bar chart is the calendar 20 sales. You'll see the peak is in the 225 to 250,000 range, but in calendar 2019, it was in the 190,000 range. So really a significant increase in values and appreciation for the residential market. Our single family tax history since 2013. I would just note here that in 2023, our fiscal value, our average home value went from 185.1 to 215.7. That is a 16.5% increase. Again, showing a great appreciation in the market. The residential tax factor. This is a factor that sets the tax burden to be borne by each class of property. The residential tax factor also sets the residential and SIP tax rates for the fiscal year. The city of Springfield, we do shift the tax burden from the residential class to the SIP class. A single rate for fiscal 23 would be $21.52. And the maximum shift we can have in the city of Springfield is 1.75. Here's a chart basically showing what the shift really is. On the left, you'll see a percent of full and fair cash value. Again, residential is 76% of the total value and SIP is 24% of the total value. But once we apply the shift, now this is fiscal 22, who pays the actual levy? The levy is encompassed by residential taxpayers paying 60% of the levy versus the SIP, the commercial, industrial, and personal property paying 40% of the levy. So this basically is the shift, but in graph form. A chart showing our SIP shift over the last couple of years. Last year, fiscal 22, it was a 1.644. A chart just showing local communities and where they are with their shifts. In fiscal 23, there was a commitment of $10 million to reduce the levy. $3.5 million from a previous commitment of levy reduction. Now, assuming certain rates stay the same as fiscal 22, the average single family home bill increase using only the original $3.5 million. If we stayed at the same residential rate, it would be a $575 increase in the average single family home. If we looked at it and stayed at the same shift, the 1.644, it would be a $360 increase in the average single family bill. But with the mayor's recommendation of using an additional 6.5 for a total of $10 million to reduce the levy, we would see a $194 increase in the average single family bill. The mayor's recommendation to further reduce the levy in the amount of $6.5 million. This further assists the residential taxpayers by increasing the shift as well. Now, this increase towards the shift, in my opinion, should really be balanced. And that's what this approach is with the mayor's recommendation. We need to be cautious and not move too far close to the maximum shift of 1.75 because it does limit our options in future fiscal years. So with the result of using an additional $6.5 million for a total of $10 million is an average single family bill increase of 194. The recommended factor would be 0.7926 with a residential rate of 1705, which is a $1.77 reduction from fiscal 22, and a SIP rate of 3640, which is a reduction of $2.64. Personal exemptions, these are allowed by state law. So 41C, this is now a $1,000 deduction and exemption. Where the city council and the mayor, they lowered the qualification age from 70 to 65, adopted a cost of living adjustment, and this will help going forward. It increases the amount of an exemption that can be earned, and they increased the amount from 500 to 1,000. We are also seeking home rule petition to basically mirror the standards and qualifications of 41C that would apply to people under the age of 65. We do have an exemptions for veterans, generally with a rating of 10% or more. Another category is 17D, and this would be for someone who's over the age of 70. or a widow or widower, or a minor, this does have an asset restriction, not an income restriction. There's also an exemption for someone who's blind. Now, this should be a balanced approach. So a sound fiscal management is really critical in this uncertain future. There's certainly some people forecasting a recession in the next couple of years. If we did use additional free cash, it would create a balloon payment where if we did use $20 million of free cash for fiscal 23, this means that in a future year, possibly next year, there would be a $300 increase to simply offset that $20 million used for fiscal 23. While we have seen separation between the levy and the levy ceiling, a recession could eliminate that in 4 to 5 years. And we get there by looking at if the market is stagnant beginning in calendar 23. So if we don't see much of a market appreciation for residential market, we would crash into the levy ceiling in 4 to 5 years. A reduction in home values, instead of just being stagnant, would certainly accelerate that. If the levy and the levy ceiling do collide, reserves would be required to fully fund the budget. Now, the council votes needed tonight. It's really critical that we do adopt a tax factor. The goal was to have Department of Revenue certification by tomorrow, but clearly that is not going to happen now. So we do need a tax factor vote tonight. So the first vote would be a second reading of the $6.5 million of free cash, and then to adopt a residential tax factor. Before the IT department can do too much work on generating a third quarter bill, we do need approval from DOR on our tax factors and our tax rate. And that is my presentation. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before we entertain questions for the chair, I will remind councilors we do have a 4:30 meeting scheduled as well, during which time we can question anybody necessary. At this time, recognizing the time currently, I will recognize Councilor Whitfield.
Thank you. I just have a quick question for Patrick. The 6.5 million is out of FY23 free cash that we certified, the $67 million free cash.
Well, yes, it's the money that was just certified as free cash.
The 23.
I think it was fiscal 22 free cash, but yes.
I thought fiscal 22 is what we just certified.
Yes, I don't know the complete mechanics of that. My apologies, but yes,
Okay.
the 6.5 million would come out of the money that was just certified as free cash.
But we don't know what fiscal year that was, if it was FY22 or FY23.
Well, I think it's free cash.
The CAFO is here as well.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Capital.
Yeah, so the $6.5 million is from the fiscal 22 certified free cash that DOR just certified last week.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Councilor Davila, followed by Councilor Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. President. Patrick, thank you for your presentation, but Patrick, just walk me back for a second. How much money is the average citizen supposed to save with the mayor's total $10 million on average?
So it was, if we stayed at the same rate, the average increase would have been $575. If we stayed at the same shift, it would have been $360 at just using the prior $3.5 million commitment. But if we used an additional $6.5 million, and if we use the mayor's recommended rate, we would see a $194 increase in the average tax bill. Okay, so if we stay at the same rate the mayor's proposing, and we use a total of $10 million, we will be, the average resident will see an average increase of how much again? $194? $194. $194. Okay, because I'm a little confused, Patrick, because you keep talking about $300 balloon payment if we throw in extra 20 million. Let me finish my question. An extra $10 million for a total 20. So how is that? Explain to me, how are we facing a $300 increase
if we stay at same rate and throwing more money into the pot? Wouldn't that logically say that it should be lower than $194 payment? Explain to me how we get to 300.
Sure. So, well, we're looking at a $194 increase, but for every $1 million that the levy is reduced by free cash, it's about $15 to the average tax bill. So if you
Either
do
that completely
$20
went
million
up. I'm sorry, if I have a stereo blank, it's because I did not understand the word what you just said. Would you say that again?
Sure. So it's for every $1 million of free cash used to lower the levy, it's about $15 a reduction towards the average single family taxpayer. So if $20 million is used, it's about $300.
So are you telling me that if we stay at the same rate and we go with the recommendation of $10 million, that's going to give the average taxpayer an average increase of $194. But if we increase that $10 million to $20 million, that is going to increase the bill? Is that what you're telling me?
Hang on one second. That would be about, we would have about a $44 increase if we used essentially the where the mayor's recommendation was using 10 million.
I'm not sure if we're speaking the same
So it's-
language. Either that or I'm missing something here because it doesn't make sense to me. If I owe you $100, $194, and somebody gives me money to help you pay you, I'm not gonna be owing more. My bill's not gonna go up. Maybe that wasn't the best example I just could give. I just don't see how you keep saying about the balloon payment. And I'm sorry, I just don't understand your explanation. I'm trying hard, Patrick. Unless I'm missing something here, maybe my coffee's not working. I just don't understand how, in the name of God, you saying that if we throw in more money, that's going to increase the bill. I just don't understand. But I just wanted to make that point. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank
So
you.
let-
Mr. Chairman, hold on for 1 second. Councilor Davila, did you have further questioning for the assessor before we move on? To the
No,
next
because I don't think
council?
he's answering my question. Either maybe I don't understand it. I don't know, but I don't think we're getting anywhere.
Thank you, Councilor Davila. Just we'll go to Councilor Walsh and just a time check. It's 4:25, so this hearing will end at 4:30, and we will then move into our next scheduled meeting for the 2 agenda items. Councilor Walsh.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I will be brief. I know a lot of people say that, but I will be brief. Patrick, I just wanted to thank you for the explanation. You've clarified a lot of issues. And I just want to be sure that I'm going to support the proposal because I want to make sure the taxpayers do end up getting a break. And I think if there's too much discussion as there was last week, there's a possibility they might not get relief. So I'm supporting all the proposals tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Walsh. Are there any further questions for the assessor prior to our adjournment, prior to our 4:30 meeting?
Do you, Council President, do you mind if I try to answer Councilor Davila's question one more time?
I do mind, Mr. Chairman, because Councilor Davila has stated that he is rescinding his time at this time, and we will be moving to a 4:30 hearing in about 4 minutes, which you all will need to move to a different link for. At this time, are there any further questions for the assessor?
Yes.
Councilor Fenton.
Mr. Greenhall, could you explain the balloon payment, please? As I understand it, if we take $10 million, throw it at the tax rate this year, it reduces average bills by plus or minus 400. We start with a built-in $400 increase next year, even if property values don't go up a single cent. Is that basically the concept? Could you speak to that, please?
Sure. So leave the kind of the reduction element aside because it gets a little complicating looking at the same rate or the same factors, but just the math of it. If you put in $10 million of free cash, that's a $150 reduction on whichever rate or factor that's chosen. And Councilor Fenton, you're correct that what happens is if the levy stays the same or increases next year, that will need to be made up. That's going to be baked into the levy for next year. So there will be an automatic increase in the next fiscal year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are there any further questions? Councilor Whitfield?
This is more of a comment. That's only if all the factors remain the same or increase, but we keep talking about recession on one hand, and then on the next hand, we talk about increases in the value and in the or the factors remain the same. So we can't talk both. We gotta, it's one or the other. So if the values do decrease, and in fact decrease, which they are trending right now, values are trending downward, then that $300 balloon payment, if 20 million was used, is not in fact accurate. So it just depends on different factors of the market. That's one side. So I just wanted to make sure that we have both sides of the story. And I'm not going to support, I will support the 6.5 million, but I'm not going to support the tax factor because I think there's a more fair tax factor that gives a reduction to the residential and commercial properties. And it's going to be one that I propose at the meeting. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Are there any further questions? Seeing none, at this time we will stand adjourned until our 4:30 meeting. If you are participating virtually, councilors, there were 2 meeting links sent out. This would be the second meeting link, which was for the 4:30 and later on the 7 o'clock meetings. Please feel free to contact the office with any questions. Thank you.